let me just take this opportunity to welcome you all in sharing the knowledge in the profession. I think I will not just by dint of the introduction that have been done. Let me just say briefly that I'm the head of audit at the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. I'm now 2 years and 2 weeks old. Previously, I worked at a regulatory agency in the public sector for about 13 years as the head of audit. And I've also worked in the professional services. I'm a practitioner. And I've also worked in the financial services sector. But more importantly, I'm also doing a lot of capacity building in this area of governance, risk, and compliance. And I believe a good number of you, maybe if I've not known you by names, but at least maybe we have met in some of these forums. So that is a brief about me. And more importantly, I'm also now venturing into another area, especially on the ESG reporting and climate finance, just as Elias has said. And it's a very nice area also for internal auditors, but I'm looking at it from the point of providing more knowledge on the area. So I will my approach to the presentation today will not be the traditional way where we have slides to present, but I will be able to have just about two slides, and those two slides will be enough to take care of us for the period that will be here. And then I will take very little time to present, and so that we give the participants time to engage, because partly it's not about presentation, it's about engagement and sharing experience, asking questions and providing those answers, even right from the participants and also from ourselves. And I think that is how we can be able to grow our profession. So feel most welcome, and let us contribute as we discuss so that we grow the profession. So Elias, you'll allow me to just put up my slide.
Yes, Dr.
Yeah, let me just share my slide.
Yes, the slides are up now.
The slides are up. So I think the slides the slides are up. My topic of discussion today is how to unlock value of internal audit. Now, I think we have moved very many, and we have achieved very many milestones right from the time when the internal audit profession came in. And many a times people thought that we are doing policing. But I think we have moved from that stage, and we are now in a stage where we focus on value addition to the business. But then we want to see how can the organization feel that we are adding value. And as auditors, we really need to really understand the businesses where we operate. Our stakeholders, we must understand their needs, what they desire to get from internal audit functions, and just to make sure that we help them achieve some of the key objectives. So for us to be seen as adding value, the value of internal audit will be seen through a lens of five key areas. That is area of assurance, insight, objectivity, support for strategic objectives, and then value enhancement. So I will briefly talk about each one of them so that we see how we can be able to to convince our stakeholders that internal audit is a function that adds value to the organization, and we are not a cost center, or we are not the way we are perceived to be policemen within institutions. So one of the key areas that auditors look at is on assurance. Assurance here, we are trying to look at how can we be able to make the board comfortable that while they are away from the institution, they are comfortable that systems, the internal controls, the policies are working as intended. So in other words, we are trying to give assurance in terms of the internal control, and we are also giving assurance in terms of the effectiveness of the risk management framework that has been implemented in the institution. The board and management would like to know. They just want to be sure that everything is working on them. And on this assurance, I think majority of us do a lot of assurance, and in majority of our reports are touching on assurance. So most importantly, how can we be able to advise management? How can we be able to provide assurance reports that the management will be able to feel that they are driving value out of it? How will we be able to be there for them when things are not doing so well, even in terms of being proactive and citing issues or areas that needs to be focused on? I'm saying this one, and I'm also cognizant of the environment under which a good number of auditors operate from. So you'll find that in institutions where the audit maturity levels are still low, sometimes it becomes a bit of challenge in terms of how we deal with our stakeholders. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that some of us deal with very difficult stakeholders, but that is where now the value of leadership as auditors come in, especially when you are ahead of audit. The value proposition comes in terms of how you are going to handle the difficult stakeholders, so that they, as much as you provide assurance, they also want to feel that the advice they get from you is actually providing more value to the organization and even helping them to achieve objectives. So auditors play a critical role, and the moment we recognize that our role is more critical than any other role within the institution, then we'll be able to start knowing that our value addition in terms of assurance will be more appreciated, more valued, and the board and senior management will be able to see the reason why they can be able to keep the internal audit functions. So both from the public and the private sector, we are faced with almost similar challenges, but I think our focus on assurance should be more value adding, so that the organization, the business can be able to thrive and even achieve objectives through the advisory that we provide through the assurance reports that we give. So most importantly, the advice or the risk management strategies, our risk management strategies, issues, the findings, the observations that we provide as a result of assurance engagements must be fully supported, so that management can be able to see that what is being pointed out is of value to them. And I believe that with that, the board will not have a reason not to support the internal audit. Now, the second part is the insight. Now, when we're talking about insight, our auditors, the value of internal audit can come through the insight area, we are trying to look at how can auditors do the assessment of an institution using data methodologies that will be able to add values, data that can be analyzed and interpreted, and data that can be used to make informed decisions, which can be able to help the institution to make informed decisions. For example, for those auditors who come from large institutions where there's a lot volumes of data, it will be very, very important, because when you do analysis of this data, the data will be able to inform what is happening within the institution and even within the environment. So data is everything. But the challenge that we have as auditors, and that is the reason why sometimes we still don't, people feel that we don't add value. A good number of us are still dealing with manual operations. So you'll find that the organization is huge in terms of operations. They are dealing in volumes and volumes of data, but then we cannot be able to do data analytics. We cannot be able to analyze some of the information to inform the reports that we make. So in the modern audit system, the value proposition lies in the data. And the data is everywhere, whether it is in medical field or health field, health sector, whether it is in the manufacturing sector, whether it is in the service industry, whether it is in the public sector, data is everything. So through data, the internal auditors can be able to do a lot of analysis, provide insights through that, and advise management on areas where they want to focus. Because even data will be able to help us do risk-based audits, which are fully informed. So if we do that, then we'll be in a position to convince the management and the board that there's a lot of value that comes from internal audit. And many of you will agree with us that many internal audit functions are still being deprived of the resources. And when you look at the resources that we are talking about, based on the GIS, the Global Internal Audit Standards, the resources are mainly three. And that is the human resource, technological, and financial resources. So on the part of human resource, you will agree with me that still majority of internal audit functions are still lean. So you might find that there are some audit shops where we only have one staff, and that is an audit function. There are some that have two staff. And the ones with more than 10 staff, they are just lucky. Maybe that one you can be able to find maybe in some public sector institutions, but also in the private sector, depending on the operations. But you'll find that on the side of staffing, we are still being deprived because we have not convinced majority of our employers or our management and the board that there is some value that we add as auditors. I know there is also a school of thought that management normally tends to want to keep the internal audit function lean, because they also fear that the perception is that they fear that when they increase the number of auditors, then they will be also exposed. But when you are doing value addition and they feel the value that you add, sometimes they will not be able to struggle so much to get a reason of not adding more human resource within the internal audit. Now, the other bit of the resources is technology. And we must appreciate that things have moved. And despite the cost of this new technology, the technology that we use for example, for the audit management systems, we must appreciate that we must be able to integrate and move from the manual operations to using technological tools that we currently have, because you cannot be able to say that you are running an internal audit function in an organization which is fully computerized or automated with a lot of huge data, and then you are saying that you are still relying on manual what? Operations. That one will not be able to give you a very good leverage on to provide value addition services to your stakeholders. And through technology, data analytics becomes very easy because you'll be able to use data and analytical tools just to analyze some information that will be able to inform the reports that you are going to give. Now, the last part of resource is the financial resources. And management and the boards are still not, a good number of them still say that auditors should just be given some little amount. But I believe the moment they will appreciate the value that they get from the internal audit, they will not be able to have a reason to provide us with a lot additional what resources. I believe that resources sometimes are not sufficient, and you don't expect even when you request for 100,000 that you'll be given 100,000. When you request for 100,000, they might give you only about 40 what? 40,000. So we must be innovative enough to prove that we need more resources, and this one will only be actualized when the board, senior management have realized that we are adding value to the business, and at least there is value for money value for money in having the internal audit function within the institution. Now, another part of insight is we are trying to look at areas of how can auditors be used as catalysts. Now, catalyst means in terms of looking at our business, how can we be able to help the institution review or to re-engineer the business processes to add more value. Now, I can remember sometimes back when I joined a regulatory agency many years ago, we found when the organization was generating around 120 million. And that is what the organization was generating. And the government was also giving us about 120 million. So we were having about 120 million, 240 million as our budget and the resources. Now, the government allocation, the disbursement was never coming. So sometimes they could disburse only around 70 million. The rest, you are left to find out on how to bridge the deficit. So when I joined that institution, there is something that we did, and we did some analysis on some of our operations, regulations, the laws that we were operating under. And around 2011, we were tasked by the board through the audit committee to review all the processes, including comparing with the industry players, the regulators within that industry. And I can remember very well that I led a team that was doing that review. And I went to about 2 different countries to look at how the regulators in our sector was doing it differently and how they were financing their operations. Now, in that process also, we came to realize that there were some gaps that we were lacking in that process. And therefore, when we discussed with the board and the senior management, and the CEO was so supportive, and they realized that there's something that we were lacking as auditors in terms of regulatory impact assessment. The board sponsored my training to undertake this training. the regulatory impact assessment, just to understand how regulation is done and looking at the economic impact of the regulations that are being implemented. From that point onwards, any regulation that was being developed from our side, we had subjected it to regulatory impact assessment before we could be able to do what? To proceed with it. Even before we could take it to the ministry and the Attorney General's office, we would have done our own impact assessment internally just to make sure that the value, whatever has been captured, do not have adverse effect within the economy, and it does also not compromise on regulating the sector. So with that one, from that point, we increased our revenue generation from 120 million. At the time I was leaving, we were generating around 2 billion. As we speak today, that organization is generating around 2.5 billion. And all government support stopped. We never took it immediately after the first year. So the internal audit, in terms of the value addition, the board realized that through the services that we are providing, we were adding value to the institution. So we made the institution to be self-sufficient, to have enough revenue for themselves, income, to sustain their budgetary requirements, and also to improve regulatory framework within that sector. And I can assure you through that, around 2017, we were put in what we call a whitelist, and that whitelist made Kenya to create more employment to the country than before. So you can remember, like now in the financial services sector, we are in a situation where we are categorized as a gray list. Now, gray list means the investors will not be comfortable bringing in money to the economy. The reason being, a lot of dirty money is circulating within our what? Within our economy. So as internal auditors, what value, how can we be able to advise the institutions where we work, whether in the financial services sector, to improve on the internal controls, scale up on risk management, so that many exposures that we are having can be what? Can be minimized and can be managed. So through that, the insight that we provide, the organization will always be able to see the value that we are adding. So it's important for us just to understand how can we be able to help organizations build on the things that they do. Now, in the wake of the changing risk landscape within the economy, we must be able to be very much innovative, to provide advisory through the services we provide to the business, so that they can be able to see how to do what? To diversify, navigate through geopolitical challenges that we are facing. Issues of supply chain has been disrupted, and that one has made the cost of business to be what? To increase. So our insights through the advisory we give adds more value to the business, and that is how the board and management will be able to see the reason why they should be able to keep the internal audit function. Now, when you are trying to look at objectivity.
So maybe, Dr.
Yes.
I know there's an acronym question at the chat. The CMA for that discussion is which organization? It's just
CMA.
for, yes.
Where is it? Is it in the chat?
Yeah, it's in the chat. Which is that organization, CMA? I think you were discussing an organization that it was flowing, and there was a question on like, are you discussing CMA?
No, I'm not discussing CMA. I'm not discussing CMA. Do they want me to disclose the regulatory agency?
That's what I'm reading, but then maybe just for illustration purposes, I think, um, yeah, it's at your discretion, Daktari.
Okay. I will disclose. Don't worry. It's not private. It's not private. It's not confidential. But the institution I'm talking about is Kenya Maritime Authority. So that's where I used to work, and there's a lot of things that we did as a result of that, and the audit added a lot of value towards that. Now, I think that one is well addressed, Elias.
Yes, Daktari. Yeah.
Yes. Now, in terms of objectivity, many a times people have felt that auditors are very difficult to deal with in terms of when they're handling audit matters. Sometimes they feel that we are biased in our approach. Sometimes they say that our integrity, some of us are not honest, and we don't uphold values that we pretend to be custodians of. So when we are talking about objectivity, we are trying to look at the approach that we give when we are doing audit. And I think this one is more critical because when you look at the global internal audit standards, objectivity is one of the key things in the internal audit, whether it is internal audit or even external audit. But for the internal audit, it is more pronounced because we must always be able to remain objective when we are handling the matters that we deal with. And I will be able to tell you that many times when you go to organizations where they have been having negative attitudes towards auditors, when you go there and you remain objective, people will tend to listen and even be eager to know what internal audit is all about. Many a times, people don't understand what internal auditors do. They only think that auditors are looking at mistakes because we point out issues, maybe through biased approach. We do not look at issues, but we look at even the personalities within those areas where we audit. So the most critical thing that auditors, we must uphold integrity. Integrity is everything. Doing what is right, even when there's nobody who's watching, is the most critical thing. And I think that is the major safeguard that we have as auditors. So that even in your absence, people just know that this person does what is right. I know it's a difficult thing based on our work environment where we are, but I believe that auditors must always do the right thing, even if it becomes so difficult within the institution. Because the moment your integrity is in doubt, then you'll not be able to have any moral authority to point out issues in that organization. So it is quite important to us as auditors. When you want to see value, when you want management to see value, the board want to see value, we must be able to do what? Uphold integrity. And more importantly, there is one virtue that most of us don't have. We lack it. The courage. The courage to provide the right advice. Some of us are fence sitters. They don't want to say the right thing. They don't want to give the right advice, even when it is so difficult to do. And there's nothing as beautiful when you give the advice in a very humble way, however difficult it is, and how the recipient is going to receive it. You'll be rest assured that what I did was the right thing. You go home when you are what? You are at peace with your mind. So what I normally advise auditors, please let us maintain integrity. I know some of you might be thinking that what is this person talking about? Integrity is everything. And some people have heard when they say that you work in institutions where people steal. As an auditor, you can also be able to join the bandwagon. If people are stealing, why not me as the auditor? Why not compromise my integrity to be part and parcel of the rot that is taking place? There is no benefit that you'll get. What you will get is short-lived. So auditors, we must be able to uphold our integrity. We must be very honest. The approach must be wholesome in such a way that when you are giving advice to the senior management, let us remain very objective. Let them see that actually what you are doing is what is right for them. So in some organization, nobody will come to the auditors to ask them anything. Auditors will be in their corner and they will only be seen at the point when they have done a report. But nobody comes for advice from you. The moment people don't come to you for an advice, just know that they have realized that there is no value that you are adding to the institution.
In connection with the ongoing probe into the state's abductions of
Yes. Sorry, I would kindly request that we remain muted. Just mute yourself. Thank you. Let's proceed.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that the moment you don't see anybody coming to you to request for a service or to even to invite you, they only see you when you have given the report, then there's a big challenge that you just know that there's no value that you are adding to the what? To the institution. So try very much so that people see that there's value in you. You know, trying very much does not mean that you entice yourself to people. Don't entice. Just do a good work and people will have a good reason to invite you, even to consult you. Whether it is the CEO or not the CEO, even the management, even other staff will always be there to consult you when they want to do things. They shall have realized that there is some value that you are adding. So it's very, very important for us to make sure that we do the right thing always. There is no compromise in matters of providing service, and do it with a lot of integrity. Be courageous enough, be humble, and let us develop or learn to have emotional intelligence on the way we handle matters of audit. You know, at senior management level, where you are a director or a head of audit or chief audit executive, even a manager, your technical capacity, the work that you do, the technical competence required might only be about 40%. But leadership plays a critical role in the issues that we are going to handle. So out of 40%, leadership will count maybe about even 30% or 40%. 20% will be political. Political does not mean that you have politics in the institution, but how to navigate through different difficulties within the institution. Because you must be able to have some skills that will be able to help you achieve some of the objectives. And all these ones must be done with a lot of caution, with a lot of objectivity, just to make sure that you drive home what you need to do and people to see the value that you are adding to them. Now, how does the internal audit support the strategic objectives, the achievement of strategic objectives? There's some of us who still believe that they should not be sitting at the senior management meetings when matters of the organizations are being discussed, critical decisions are being made. So a school of thought of some auditors still believe that they say that, we are independent. I cannot sit in that meeting. The question is, how will people realize that you are adding value? When matters of strategy are being discussed within the senior management and you are absent, how will people be able to know that you are adding value to the strategic objective of the institution? So you cannot be able to say that you are independent, that you cannot be able to sit in the senior management, and yet you are talking about advisory services as part of the definition of internal audit. At what point will you be advising management? So your value addition should be seen when you are assisting the institution to achieve the strategic objectives of the institution. And there are so many ways through which you can be able to do this. Even review of the implementation of the strategic plans. I believe a good number of auditors who are here, a few of them maybe have done audit of the strategic plans implementation or review. So the argument sometimes that auditors say that, by the way, when we are doing the audit of different departments, we also look strategic plans. That is not true. If you are strategic plan as an audit area, specifically as an audit area, you'll be able to see the gaps and advise the board accordingly on the status of the implementation of the same. So then auditors must be able to focus. Let us look at align our annual plans to the strategic objectives of the institution, because that's the only way we will be able to add value to the institution. When you review maybe semi-annually the implementation of the strategic plan, you will be able to realize that you give feedback to the board and senior management that this is what you had planned, this is what you have achieved, this is what you have not achieved, this is what you are not doing right, and this is how we can be able to do what? To improve on it. Then it becomes so easy. So let us make sure that we be sensitive to some of these critical things, because if you're not giving out strategic advice, helping the institution to achieve its strategic objectives, then management and the board will still believe that your work is post-mortem and there's no any value that you are adding in the same. So it is important for us just to make sure that we understand the strategic plan very well. We understand the strategic objectives of the organization. We align our plans towards that, and we look at more critical areas, and then we put more resources in those areas. So those are some of the, when we do that, the board and management will be able to see that in real sense, the internal audit is doing a value addition job within our organization. So you'll not have a reason, even when you ask for staffing, some good boards will not have a reason not to help you maybe get 1 or 2 people. It will be a struggle. It is not an easy way, and it is not rosy. Auditors, we have to keep on fighting. Even as much we give value, we must keep on fighting so that we sustain that value. Now, somebody will be able to ask you that we are creating value and sustaining it. How do we sustain the value? Those are some of the hard questions that we need to discuss and understand. So finally, the value enhancement. How can the internal audit enhance value?
So maybe, Dr.
Yes.
So there are 2 questions while we are still at strategic objectives.
Yes.
In the chat. And the first one is, of course, what happens if you are not invited to management meetings? That happens a lot. You're left out, and it's not by, it's not by mistake. It's well planned that it happens that you are not in the management meetings. And then there was also another question: how can one relate internal audit effectiveness and financial accountability of an institution. So maybe Dr. take the two questions as you proceed to file your announcement.
So we are talking about financial accountability and the effectiveness relation. Now, let me point out something on the first bit. When you are not invited, my friend, don't wait to be invited. Invite yourself in the meeting. But having said that, let the board make a solution. If your organization is not objective enough, the management are not objective enough to see the sense of adding you in the top management, then you must make sure that you be party to it. You can be able to take the issue. If you cannot take the issue with the CEO, or you have taken the issue with the CEO and you don't see any progress, take the issue with the audit committee, and then the board will make a solution that you become part of what? The senior management. So that there is no meeting of senior management where you are not invited. I sit in the senior management team. There's no meeting where I'm not invited. I'm in the mailing list. When the agenda is being released, I'm in the mailing list. So you make it an agenda to make sure that you are in the management committee. You fight it out for yourself. The other day, a few weeks ago, I was talking to the EACC, their top management and the commission as a whole. And we also discovered that the audit was not sitting in the top management. And we told them the benefits of letting the audit to be sitting in the senior management. And within that, with that discussion, the commission took it immediately, and the chair with this team of the commission, together with the commission, made a decision there and then that the head of audit must be able to sit in senior management. You must be able to give a reason why you want to be there. But you see, some of us, we exclude ourselves. Sometimes you are invited for the meetings, you put in the tag of that we are independent. We don't want to be in the what? We don't want to be party to what is going to be discussed. Now, if the moment you sell yourself like that, nobody will be willing to call you. Nobody will be willing to invite you for the meeting. But what I can advise you, make it an agenda. If you find that you have gotten it with the CEO, you have taken it up with the CEO, and the CEO is not listening to what you are saying, you have an avenue. Put it before the audit committee. Let audit committee make recommendation to the board. Let the board make a solution for you to be part of the senior management. So it's not something, you are not in that organization by mistake. You are there by right, and your services are required for that matter. So do not allow yourself to say that if you are not invited, invite yourself. Sometimes you can, even if they don't invite you, make an impromptu entry. If all the avenues are closed, they will not chase you away. So let us make it an agenda to us, for those who are not yet sitting in the senior management, for one reason or the other. I know management are very difficult to deal with, but that is where I told you that as a head of audit, you must be able to have the skills that are required, some of the leadership skills that you require, and some emotional intelligence just to study the way management operates is very, very important. But I will tell you from today, if you're not sitting in the senior management, find your way to be sitting in the senior management, because that is where issues are discussed, matters of strategy are being discussed, critical decisions are being made at that level, which your advisory is really required. So make yourself indispensable Now, how do you relate effectiveness and financial what? Accountability. The internal audit, effectiveness, and financial accountability. Now, we must be able to know which parameters are you using to measure effectiveness of the internal audit. Now, is it the type, the quality of the reports that you make, the types or the quality of the advisory you give? So the moment you the internal audit, when you look at the assurance bit, when you give the right assurance, right observation, right advice based on the risk, or on the risk approach, then accountability in terms of financial accountability will be able to do what? Will come into play, because you'll be pointing out issues that are being disregarded, and therefore minimizes chances of chances of misappropriation of assets, chances of impropriety, because you'll be picking those key areas where the weaknesses are there and pointing them out earlier enough. So the more we become more proactive, if the internal audit is effective, then the financial accountability will also be able to be what? Will also be high. I'm not saying that will eliminate 100%, but in terms of people being cautious that when we do this and that, the auditors will be able to raise these matters. Nobody will be able to think that let us just do it. But you know, where the internal audit is ineffective, it will be a field day for everybody, because they know very well that we have auditors who will not pick anything, they will not see anything, and they will not report what? Anything. So, and the effectiveness of internal audit also depends majorly on the head of audit, because the head of audit is the one providing leadership. I'm afraid to say there are cases where the heads of audit compromise on some of the reports given. Some of them even change reports provided by their juniors. And sometimes they don't report, they don't present these reports. So the juniors have done the donkey work, they have done very good work, but the head of audit does not do what? Does not progress these reports. So there's no way the internal audit value will be seen. So our effectiveness depends on the chief audit executives. We must be able to provide the right leadership. We must be able to provide the right advice. And we must provide the reports, high quality reports that add value. And I believe that if your reports are pointing out issues or the weaknesses in the internal control system frequently, nobody will be able to do what? To dare override them. And if even some of your reports leads to sanctioning of some staff, then that one will be able to send a very strong message that financial impropriety is not allowed or not encouraged within the institution. So Elias, that's what I can be able to say in regard to that. If you could allow me to to discuss the last point in terms of value enhancement.
Yes, Dr.
Yes, so in terms of value enhancement, how can auditors enhance value to the services that we provide in our organizations? One of the key things that auditors can be able to do, we can be able to do some training or creating awareness among the stakeholders we have. It's very, very important that if you create some awareness within the institutions where we work, people will understand exactly what auditors are doing. There are some of us who do not create any awareness. They just remain within their cubicles. They don't talk about audit completely in their institutions. So people don't understand exactly what you do. So creating awareness among the stakeholders enhances your value through which the stakeholders will be able to understand you better. So it's very, very important for us to understand that. Then another thing, it's always good to have capacity building for the board. Many times, auditors will tend to focus on the audit committee only. But you see, the moment you train the whole board, they will be able to you will be able to get the buy-in. And I think in some of my successful years in audit, one of the key things that made me to be successful and to learn more was as a result of any time when I was doing providing for the budget for the training of audit committee, I was providing for the training of the whole board. So at any one given time, I could not be able to take audit committee alone. I could take the whole board for the training. And from that, they could be able to understand exactly what is happening. So, and that one does not mean that you stop from there. You also even give management an opportunity. Sometimes you could even conduct the in-house training for the board and senior management together. And just to go and have a session with them, you tell them exactly what you do, you discuss the challenges you are having, the board understands what you are doing, the management understands what you are doing, and making the management understand that you are working for them. You are not working against them. You are only assisting the management achieve their objectives. So all those ones will be able to be seen as value enhancement. It's very, very important for us to really understand that. Now, other things that we can be able to do to add value to the board, to the organization, to be seen to be adding value. There are cases where we are requested to provide advisory services like review of certain policies. And a good number of auditors will not wish to help management review some policies. But when you look at what the standards say, and even when you look at the COSO framework, integrated framework, risk management framework, it tells us what we can do with caution, what we cannot do totally, and what we can do without any safeguard. Review of a policy by internal auditor does not mean that you compromise on your integrity. There is safeguards into that. So if management asks you, because you are the only person having skills in that area, you cannot be able to say that I cannot review this policy. The only thing that you have to do as the head of audit is to do your assessment, exposure. If you are one person in a department, you might not be able to do it. But if you are a team of 5, what stops you from assigning somebody to do the review is not there, because that person will be excluded from auditing that process for a certain period of time to allow for the cooling down time. So there's a lot of value addition that we can be able to add to the management and to the board, so that they see that what we are doing is right. And I will tell you from my perspective in 2011, 2012, when I was leading a team that was doing the review and looking at the various regulators within the sector from different countries, there's a lot that came into play, which the board and management really appreciated the role of audit. So you must be able to do an assessment of your independence when you are taking those roles, but then you must also be able to look at it from the point of view, from the value addition point of view, how it will be able to add value to the institution. So auditors, let us open up ourselves. Let us change from the traditional way of doing audit. Let us accept that things have moved. let us focus our work to add value to the businesses, to the organizations. I know it's not easy. There's a lot of challenges that we face, we go through. And in the current environment, even those who are from the public sector, it's very, very difficult for them. But I think out of those difficult situations, there is at least one thing that you can do that people can do what? Can appreciate. So turn the crisis into opportunities. When you read you read a book by a lady called a Nobel laureate, lady called Maria Ressa. She's a Philippine. She will tell you that you must be vulnerable. When you want to do something, you must be what? Vulnerable. And that is the only way you'll be able to realize that you are adding value to whatever you are doing. So let us not focus on the challenges that we face, but I think we can also be able to see the positive bit, so that we keep on adding more value to the services that we provide. Elias, I will want to stop at that level.
Wow, thank you,
Thank you.
Daktari. Yes, thank you. That was a powerful presentation. Few slides, but content rich. Thank you, Daktari. Let me move straight away to the questions that we've received from the chat. And the first question that I would wish to take, what are some of the institutions that offer audit training for boards? Yeah, that one, let me answer that, and maybe Dr. you can chime in. So the institutions that offer these trainings include IIA, and I'm so particular when I'm starting with IIA. Number 2 is ISPAC. You can talk of the Center of Corporate Governance, and then, of course, at Dorte&Associates, we can offer those trainings. So I think I've answered that question well, unless someone wants to add in more institutions. There's also another question that came up. Leah was asking this question. Can audit work be effective without audit committees in an organization? We have an internal auditor, but we don't have an audit committee. Can it be effective? So that is the first question. Dr. Maybe you will take it, but let me give you another one so that you take 2 questions at a go. Yeah, this is the most interesting one. Should an internal, this was from Kiroi Kilbert. Thank you, Kilbert, for that question. This is a question that has been running in my mind. So should an internal audit report be shared with the affected parties of an audit area before being presented to the committee? Or it should be the other way around? So maybe Dr. take the 2 questions, and we will come for another round of questions. Over from you, Dr.
Thanks a lot. Can I stop sharing?
That slide
Yes.
is, you can just leave it, Dr. It's
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So let me start with the last question. Can audit report be shared by the auditees before it is shared with the audit committee, or the other way around? Auditors, the report that you present to the audit committee is already shared with the auditees. So do not present a report to the audit committee before presenting it with the management, before presenting it to the auditee. even before sharing with the management, you must be able to share the report as in form of a draft report to the auditee. So there's no way you can present even a report to the CEO without the auditee knowing. The practice is issue a draft report to the auditee, copy the CEO if there is need. But I believe the good practice is issue the draft report to the auditee and let the auditee answer the questions or respond to the matters. Then the final report can be presented to management before you can present it to the audit committee. Secondly, the audit committee only comes once every 3 months. So you cannot talk about having audit reports within 3 months. You have done about 5 audit reports. Then you want to present them to the audit committee while the auditees do not have any information about. If I'm the audit committee, when you do that, you are the first person who will be sent out. So please don't let us do things that are right. Let us give the auditees an opportunity, because they are the ones going to implement some of those recommendations. And secondly, let us learn to give auditees an opportunity even to make recommendations for implementation of some of the observations that we have seen, the observations that we have seen. With having that, you'll find that even in terms of implementation, percentage of implementation of your strategy, your recommendations will increase. So what I can say, Elias, report must be shared with auditees before it goes to the audit committee. That is the bottom line. Now, secondly, can internal audit be effective where there is no audit committee? Yes, it can. You cannot stop from working because there is no audit committee in place. So you must continue working. You must continue doing your what? Providing your service. But you cannot be able to say that you cannot be effective when the audit committee is not there. So the audit committee might not be there because of maybe delay in appointment, but you must be able to continue issuing the reports to management, addressing the matters that you have observed during the audit, and making sure that management is implementing some of those recommendations. So my answer is yes, you can be effective even in the absence of what? Audit committee. Yes, Elias.
Thank you, Daktari.
Yes.
Thank you. And yes, so we've seen that there's a question from Jeffrey. We've seen that organizations are slowly considering outsourcing internal audit functions. Most organizations, can we take this as an indication that internal audit is losing its value? Yes, that is a question that Daktari will take, but let me add you another question. Yes. What is your take, Daktari, on domiciling the risk function in internal audit function? Yeah, so you can go with those 2 questions, Daktari. Maybe we will take more. Daktari, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
There is increase in outsourcing internal audit services. Now, at least I think the most important thing is not about whether the organization outsourcing the service have not seen the value for the internal audit. It depends on the nature of the organization and the core business. So some organizations would like to do what? To concentrate on the core business and outsource some of the services based on cost, maybe cost implication. So I do not think that outsourcing the audit service degrades the value of internal audit service. Now, this one only comes as a result of the cost implication. Because when you see the way we said that there are some organizations who are not ready to employ more auditors. And then they now say that let us outsource this service. Now, cost implication is in terms of, it's not about the salary alone, but even in relation to other benefits that are attendant to the employment of having full-time internal audit service. But what I can say, for big organizations, it will be very difficult for them to outsource the service. For big and complex organizations, outsourcing service will be internal audit will be very, very difficult. But for small organizations, they can afford to do what? To outsource. But what I've seen in practice is not outright outsourcing. They do what we call co-sourcing. So they have an internal audit function within the institution, maybe with a head of audit, but then they also outsource the audit services. So as much as the audit services comes from outside, but there will be an internal audit head who will be in that institution. That's what we call co-sourcing. So, but what I can tell you is not about value, that our value has gone down. No, there are other parameters that are being used to be considered for us to get those services outsourced. Now, in terms of domiciling risk management in the internal audit, I think when you look at the standards, when you look at the integrated risk management framework and the guidelines from the IIA, we talk about auditors have special skills that other people do not have. And you have even seen in some organizations where the risk has been hived from the internal audit, sometimes it doesn't become functional. But that one does not mean that we need to domicile risk management in internal audit. Internal audit provides assurance on even risk management. So what I can be able to say, depending on the nature of the institution, depending on the complexity of the business, the internal audit can be able to help the institution start risk management function. They can nurture it for a certain period of time, but management must commit, or the organization must commit, that they can only be able to nurture it for a specific period of what? Period of time. So that you let somebody else do it. So domiciling it fully is not right, but nurturing it or initiating it from the internal audit is a good practice that is done globally. But this one must be dependent on the nature of the business, the complexity of the business, the size of the institution. There are so many parameters that can be considered. But again, nurture it for a period, then separate it. I think that one can be a good practice. Thank you, Elias.
Thank you, Daktari. And we have, I believe, two last questions. And then we should be coming close to the end of this meeting. Yeah, so this question is on where there's a strategic plan. This was from Titus. So how can one determine the best time to do a strategic audit? Let's assume a strategic plan for 2023-2028. That's a 5-year strategic plan. Will you do this strategic audit yearly, mid-term, so to say? Yes, so that is a key question. When is the best time to do a strategic audit? When we have a 5-year plan, and we've used an example of 2023 to 2028. So this is the best area internal audit can get attention from management if properly done. And then there was a question also from, yes. We said that, this is from Thomas. We said that when the chief internal auditor is present in senior management meetings, it goes a long way. But Thomas is like, what safeguards are there for chief internal auditor when they attend the senior leadership meetings to prevent them from owning up to leadership decisions made in their presence that may lead to organizations' downfall? So senior leadership, when they see chief internal auditor is seated in a meeting, they would make decisions that might lead to the downfall of the institution, and they will be like, but the chief internal auditor was seated right at the meeting. So what safeguards are there to really protect the chief internal auditor? So I think those are the only questions that are in the chat. Yes, so Daktari, take those questions.
Thanks a lot, Eliasa, for that. And thanks for the person who has brought that. Now, let me ask a very simple question, maybe that might answer even that. I will ask somebody, for example, the auditors, the chief audit executives. When we sit in audit committees, do we sit there as members? We don't sit as members. Even when we document through the minutes, how is our presence documented? In attendance. So it means that we are not party to the decisions being made. Our work is to provide advisory in that. So as a chief audit executive, when you are sitting in a senior management, you are not sitting there to go and make decisions. You are going there to provide advice. You are going to provide advisory. So you are not part of the decision-making process, but you are only there to provide what? Advisory service. So even your documentation, you will be in attendance in that meeting. So being in attendance does not mean that you sit and you sit and listen. You don't contribute. If you're not contributing in the meeting, then there's no value you are adding. It is as well as don't participate in that meeting. Your participation in management meeting is in regard to advisory part that auditors do, because that is where the decisions are going to be made. So for example, if the organization made a decision that is leading to its downfall, and you are in that meeting and you kept quiet, and you would have provided maybe advisory to that effect, maybe that advisory, if it was lacking, if it was there, it would have saved the institution. So the safeguard that we say, your independence must be very, very clear, and your objectivity in attendance of that meeting must be very clear. Your independence safeguards must also be there. Just know that when you are attending the meeting, you are not attending the meeting as a decision maker, but you are attending the meeting as a person providing advisory. That is very clear to what we do. So do not run away from attending senior management meeting because you are an internal auditor. Your services are more required at that point in time. And don't go there and keep quiet. You know, some of us will say that I don't want to speak. You have to speak and contribute. You must be able to provide. If people are saying that we are going to Meru, but I want us to go through Garissa, and you look at the cost, instead of following maybe Kirinyaga or Nyeri, I'm not very sure. I don't know the road going to Meru, but I'm just giving an hypothetical situation. So when you look at the cost implications and the exposure in terms of even security issues, You cannot leave people to follow the Garissa way for them to go to what? To Meru. Because first, the cost implication is going to be high. Secondly, the security issues will be a lot. So you cannot sit and say that you are sitting comfortable in your office. Your colleagues have gotten an accident. Maybe they have been attacked by bandits and they have been killed. And then you are saying that, you know, me, in my own thinking, I thought they would have taken this other route. So what I will tell you, if I'll tell the person who asked the question, sit in the management committee, senior leadership position, meeting, listen to what is being discussed, provide your advisory. Don't keep quiet. Don't shy away from attending. You'll be made irrelevant. Now, at what point is the advice or the strategic plan can be audited? You can be able to say that you can audit it depending on your organization. You can audit it once in a year. Once in a year is okay. So that you go through what has been implemented during the year and you advise the board and management at the end of the what? Of the year. So once in a year is okay, but if you have resources, you can do it twice in what? In a year. Now, the reason why we say this, like in the public sector, there is something called performance contract. When you look at the performance contract, some of the information being put in the performance contract to have been achieved, or some commitments, some of them are not even touching on the issues in the strategic plan. So people are running with the performance contract, but they are leaving the strategic what? Plan. So what I can advise, depending on your resources and the scale and the size of the institution, you can be able to do a strategic plan audit review once in a year or twice in a year. That's the best way to do it. Elias?
Thank you, Daktari. Yeah, so members, we really appreciate the questions that are coming in. But there are key comments that Amos Kiptum has made about audit. And he said that in many organizations, internal audit is still viewed through a narrow lens. They still feel that audit looks at errors, enforces rules, checks for compliance within policies. This perception undermines the broader audit function. At times, so Kiptum proceeds and says that auditors are engaged too late. So management fails to engage auditors early in major projects. And they are usually called in when something goes wrong. So when something goes wrong, auditors are being remembered. There's this feeling that internal audit reports is a compliance exercise that it reminds me of NGO board, whereby there's need for an audit every year. And most of the talented auditors feel undervalued. And this leads to attrition and minimal innovation within the audit function. Yeah, so Amos Kiptum, I feel you. I hear you loud and clear. Now, there's this last question, Daktari. I know there's the flip side of the question that assuming the internal auditor, the chief internal auditor is sitting in a meeting and he makes recommendations that leads to the downfall of the institution. So the other question was like, he was seated in that meeting, the leadership were making recommendations, they were making decisions that led to the downfall of the institution, and he was just seated and he was quiet. But this time round, he was sitting in the leadership meeting, he was consulted, he made contributions, He provided some advice, and based on his advice, that led to the downfall of the institution. So that was a flip question, Daktari. Let me take this question. I think there's a question now from, yes, from Thomas. If as the chief internal auditor, you are involved in setting up controls as leadership, how effective will you be when auditing the same controls that add gaps? And then last question from CPA Joe. So it's like he attended an interview and he was asked, if you've been appointed an internal auditor of this institution, you've completed an audit and you find everything is in order, how would you justify your appointment and, of course, your remuneration? So, Daktari, take those questions as we wrap up. Thank you.
Elias, just clarify can you repeat the last one?
So the last one, CPA Joe attended an interview. And during the interview, the panelists were asking CPA that, assuming you've been appointed an internal auditor and you've completed your audit, and in your findings, you realize that everything is in order. The policies are in place, the internal controls are good, the standard operating procedures are followed, everything is in order. Now, how would you justify your appointment and remuneration? Over from me, Dr.
Thanks a lot, Eliasa. I believe that an organization does not stop operating even when you think that things are perfect. You'll realize that there are some things that are not working. So that is that one cannot be an ideal position. And there is no organization that is perfect. So you can be able to do, assuming that the audit was done as at that time, and all what you got was right. It does not mean that there is nothing that can turn to be bad immediately after that audit. So there's a good reason why auditors are still required, because we are there to help the organization improve the processes and the systems that are in place. Things keeps on changing. Who thought about the coming of ESG reporting? Who thought about the coming of it? Now, who thought about the coming of AI? So you cannot say that everything is perfect and then we cannot proceed. We cannot have an auditor because everything is perfect. Even Jesus Christ said that, keep on reminding those people, the sinners, even when they have sinned, keep on reminding them about things that people might think that they are doing things right. Along the way, you might fall. Something else might be able to do what? Happen wrong. So there's nothing, to my extent, if I was working in that institution, there's nothing that I can tell them that everything is perfect. That's an hypothetical situation. So things keep on changing, environment keeps on changing, risk continue to face the institution throughout. So CPA, it was CPA Jonas. You will still earn your salary because there is still work to be done. Now, finally, you are saying that when auditor gives now an advice, a recommendation that leads to the downfall of the institution. Now, auditors are not angels. We are not perfect. But the most critical thing is when you are giving a recommendation, it must be informed recommendation. You must be having full information as at that time when that recommendation is being given. So when you are giving advice, make sure that you have all information, do a lot of research and due diligence, and give the recommendation as at that time with full information. Even if the firm can fall after that, you will be rest assured that the recommendation I gave, the advice I gave, as at the time I gave it, was the right what? Recommendation or the right advice. So I do not think that there is anything wrong if because the recommendation I've given has ended up making the institution to do what? To fall. The only mistake that will be there is when I did not have all facts at hand. But if you have all facts at hand, there's nobody will be able to do what? To claim that you did that thing without information. You'll prove the facts. So what I can advise the management, the auditors, when you are providing your recommendation, if the management have requested you for a recommendation, do not rush. Do your due diligence, have the right information and the right data, provide that advice. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of what is going to happen. Provide the information, the recommendation with integrity, with confidence, but make sure that you have the facts. So if you give without facts, it's a problem. But if you give with facts and you can support it, there's nothing wrong that you have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari. The session was really interactive, and this is the way to go. Thank you, members. So as we are coming to the end of this meeting, allow me to welcome our managing partner to wrap up this session. Welcome, CPA Dot.
Okay. Thank you very much, Daktari. That was an awesome session. Always encouraging to listen to your, different way of looking at this audit activities as they happen. So the thing I've picked from you today is about professional courage. That are we able to communicate those findings, even though they are disastrous, for lack of a better word, but how do we then develop the professional courage to do it? So thank you for your tips and ideas and thoughts of how to do it. We really appreciate you coming to our discussions and sharing from your point of experience and knowledge. And I want to also appreciate the participants for being very engaging and asking Daktari all the possible questions. So as we come to the end, if you are not an internal auditor in the house, I hope you understand what we do. I hope you understand how we do it. And I hope you understand that we are your friends, and please engage us. You can just, not all the time do we offer assurance services. We can also be an in-house consultant. So you can come to us before we come for audit, and we discuss and see how we can give you a professional advice so that we take the right direction. And that's the value that internal auditors add to you. Remember, we are part of the organization. If we are within the organization, so that means we are pursuing the same objectives and goals. So because this is the internal audit month and we are coming to the end of this month, for me to close, I would like to just bring your attention to our institute, the Institute of Internal Auditors. And as you can see, there's a lot of activity trying to support this internal audit function. And within that Institute of Internal Auditors, there's also a lot of good things coming up, with the possibility of us having a legislation, with the possibility of us then having a local curriculum. So the future is bright. If you're interested in joining this career, please know that the future is bright. It is bright. And I just want to bring to your attention a few things about our institute. You can join as a member. Membership is about 3,000 shillings if you're not yet a member, and an annual subscription of 5,000 shillings. If you go to the IIA website, IIA Kenya, you can find, it's very easy to join, and they are very supportive, so they'll help you to join. And if you want to then continue to be a certified internal auditor, if you're a CPAK, if you have a CISA, if you have an ACA, you qualify to do the CIA challenge, where you do the one exam instead of 3. So you look out for those opportunities when they come. And that is a brief about our institute. We have about 4 certifications: the CIA, the CRMA, the IAP, and you used to require to be a CIA to be able to do the CRMA, but currently you can just go ahead and do CRMA without the CIA. So that's a brief background. You can go to the website of IA to find more about how to become a member of the Institute. Once you become a member of the Institute, you get access to a lot of information, a lot of guidance, a lot of, you go into a network of many internal auditors across the world. Also, if you go to LinkedIn, you'll find many people discussing these similar topics, and it helps us to all be aware of our profession, the developments going on out there. So please join the Institute, become a member, become a part of the community, and continue to learn with us in this journey. It's always good to have someone to walk with, to talk to, and to, learn from as we walk this journey of internal auditing. Personally, I take it as a very noble cause, because our work is most of the time, not many people like us, but once people appreciate our value and understand actually the value we add, it becomes very, engaging and you feel valued, and you're able to continue to add value. So look out for our next session next month, on the last Thursday of the month, where we'll bring another facilitator to take us through a topic that you will then have arrived at that time. So without taking much of the time, because we are past the hour by 10 minutes, but sometimes it's hard to cut us short as the engagements are very, engaging. So I just want to give our speaker 1 minute to give us his parting shot, and then we will call it a night until last Thursday of May. Thank you to you, Dr. Harry, for your parting shot.
Now, thanks a lot, Dorothy, for the chance and opportunity and the platform that you have provided. I think it's a very good platform for internal auditors to share. So what I can be able to say that let us just keep the mantle burning, and let us keep the platform alive. But most importantly, auditors, we are having a noble duty to perform. Let us just continue doing the right thing, irrespective of the challenges we go through. Let us keep on fighting. And I wish you well, and have a good night, all of you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Harry. Thank you, members. Have yourself a good night. See you next month.
Mfalme wa usiku, roho yangu itaimba. Ngoma zetu tusameni, maisha